Emperor Sheev Palpatine is one of the most powerful individuals within the entirety of Star Wars lore, and has routinely competed with some of the most talented Jedi Masters of his generation. Sidious is an incredibly powerful Force user, as well as a gifted lightsaber combatant, and throughout the course of his tenure as a Sith Lord, very few have ever been able to stand in his way or offer him any significant challenge. Over the course of his political career, Sheev studied the Jedi closely, learning about their inner workings as he devised a plan to topple the entire order. Secretly a Dark Lord under his own master, which Sidious enacted over the course of several long decades. Despite the intricacy of his plan, however, there was one Jedi in particular that Palpatine feared above all others, despite being nigh unbeatable by any one Jedi alone. So today, students of the Force, let's explore why Palpatine feared Qui-Gon Jinn of all Jedi, and why Qui-Gon was perhaps the single greatest threat to Palpatine's Sith rule. Palpatine's plan was incredibly elaborate and intricate, and required several years to fully enact, meaning that Palpatine had to rely on certain factors to ensure that his mission was ultimately accomplished. He had to manipulate pieces from the shadows for years and ensure that everything fell perfectly into place in order for the Clone Wars to not only start, but to carry out in a way that framed his narrative to his own liking. While Qui-Gon Jinn was a highly talented Jedi Knight, he was not the most powerful Force user of the galaxy, or even that the Jedi at the time had to offer, being outmatched by the likes of Dooku, Windu, and Yoda himself. Nor was Qui-Gon the most gifted with the lightsaber, as he certainly could not stand against Palpatine in any physical or Force-based sense. Despite his own respectable training, Palpatine and Qui-Gon simply did not match up, and Qui-Gon did not have the physical skill sets to threaten Palpatine in any way. But where he did excel, however, was in his ability to challenge the Order and their dogmatic ideals, something that Sidious was relying on. This was one of the most vital aspects of Palpatine's entire plan, and one that he could not compromise if he was to succeed. Perhaps the single most crucial element that Palpatine had to rely on was directly tied to the dogmatic nature of the Jedi Council, and the arrogance of the Jedi Order as a whole, as this was the largest cause of the Jedi's own internal downfall, which Palpatine merely exploited. In many ways, the Jedi Order was ready to topple. Palpatine simply needed to give it its first push. Long before Sidious's arrival, the Jedi had already been weakened from the inside, and had fallen from grace as the noble peacekeepers that they had once been, valiant guardians and protectors of the galaxy. And Palpatine knew this. Palpatine had grown to see just how arrogant and confident the Jedi Order had become, and this played a key role in Palpatine's operation and plan for their downfall. In order for Palpatine's plan to work, he had to make moves in the shadows without the Jedi Order noticing, and for this to work, he had to exploit the arrogant, outdated ideals of the sitting council in order to conduct his work from the shadows successfully and not be detected. He had to make power moves right under the Jedi Order without them noticing or having any attention drawn to him whatsoever. But one Jedi stood against the grain of his peers. One Jedi threatened this. The Jedi of Qui-Gon's generation believed themselves to be omniscient paragons of virtue, and they were unable to accept their inherent flaws. It was for this very reason that they were never questioning anything that challenged them, at least most of them did not, and therefore Qui-Gon, who actively challenged them, never fit in. Qui-Gon was much more open to defying the Council and seeking his own answers despite what the Council may have believed or imposed upon other Jedi. Qui-Gon was seldom content with the wisdom that the Council offered, and he instead sought to find his own path among the Jedi, who had long since lost their connection to the Force and their drive to seek out the light. Qui-Gon in many ways believed that the Jedi too had fallen from grace, and he shared this sentiment with Palpatine. Over the course of the Clone Wars, they disregarded anything that questioned their validity or wisdom, allowing their own hubris to blind them for prolonged periods of time, allowing the Sith to grow just out of sight. The Jedi never questioned Palpatine until it was far too late, because they believed that they were too wise and too powerful to detect the return of the Sith, and that they would have spotted this outright, especially when a Dark Lord was able to grow so closely and infiltrate their ranks. The Jedi deemed this impossible. Dooku even outright told Obi-Wan that the Senate was under the control of a Sith Lord, and for the next 3 years, the Jedi were unable to uncover Palpatine's plan, because they were so lost in their own hubris, despite Palpatine operating from within the beating heart of the Republic. Had Qui-Gon been alive, however, he very likely would have pursued Dooku's claim and sought to uncover the truth. This meant that Palpatine wasn't inherently worried about being physically bested by Qui-Gon, as Qui-Gon was not able to contend with Palpatine outright. All he had to do was keep Qui-Gon silent enough for Palpatine's plan to be too far along to be stopped by Qui-Gon Jinn. Palpatine was able to stand his ground against Jedi Master Yoda, and was only ever truly bested in physical combat by Mace Windu, but even during both of these encounters, his plan was already too far in motion to be stopped by either of these powerful Jedi. His force mastery and lightsaber combat skill was nearly unmatched, and his strategic prowess made him one of the most talented tacticians and strategists of all time, which meant that even if we were to be killed, there was no conceivable way to stop the rise of Darth Vader, the rise of the Empire, and the destruction of the Jedi. Throughout the Clone Wars, Palpatine made mistakes and left behind clues to his plan, but the Jedi were too arrogant to believe that they could ever be wrong. His inhibitor chip program within the clone troopers malfunctioned, causing a premature execution of Order 66. This execution that very nearly tipped the Jedi off to Palpatine's plan and agenda, but again, their own arrogance stopped them and caused them to disregard this as a fluke. They tossed this aside, allowing Palpatine to continue operating in plain view without ever being challenged by the Order. Qui-Gon Jinn, however, was the most flexible Jedi Knight in terms of his ability to accept that he did not have all of the answers. Qui-Gon was not blinded by arrogance or hubris and realized that he did not know everything and was still very much a student of the galaxy and the Force, which in turn allowed the willingness to explore his own findings. He came to his own conclusions about the galaxy and was not satisfied with the Council simply telling him how to conduct himself, and if he had been alive, he likely would have not been blinded by the same confidence that plagued his peers in Yoda, Windu, and the other Council members, and he would have sought to find the full truth of this Sith. This meant that if Palpatine slipped up, which we know that he did on numerous occasions, there was one Jedi above the rest that ran the risk of uncovering Palpatine's incredibly sensitive and volatile plan. If Palpatine had been exposed as a Sith Lord, he would have been hunted by the entirety of the Jedi Order. His political power would have been stripped from him, and if he survived the encounter, he would have been driven into the shadows. However, it was not only in this regard that Qui-Gon Jinn was a massive threat to the rule of Sidious. In addition to this, Qui-Gon Jinn was the father figure that Anakin Skywalker lacked at the Jedi Order. Obi-Wan Kenobi, despite him trying as hard as possible, was never a father to Anakin. He was only a brother, with Anakin always desiring a father figure to look up to. A Qui-Gon Jinn would have been that father figure. Instead, this lack of a father figure and a lack of acceptance among the Jedi, this led Anakin directly into the welcoming arms of Palpatine, who Anakin viewed as a father figure. He never perceived any of the Jedi as surrogate fathers, but Palpatine was there when he needed him. He listened to him, he encouraged him, and praised him when the Jedi seemed to outright only criticize him. And therefore, he was willing to turn to the dark side of the Force for his surrogate father to protect him, and for the protection of a better galaxy. In the end though, had Qui-Gon Jinn been there, had Qui-Gon Jinn been the Jedi and the father that Anakin needed, not only would he likely have discovered Sidious's plan, but Anakin Skywalker would have never become Darth Vader, and the ultimate plan of Sidious would have crumbled thanks to one Jedi. In the end though, Darth Sidious knew this, and therefore made sure that his own apprentice in Maul butchered the Jedi Master before the impact of Qui-Gon Jinn could be fully felt on the galaxy. But as always, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Qui-Gon Jinn as a Jedi Master, and why he was the biggest threat to Palpatine's rule? And do you hope to see Qui-Gon Jinn in the final episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.